Happy New Year. At least that's what people expect me to say, with excitement, fireworks in the background, a smile on my face, and a sense that everything just reset overnight. But the truth is, when the clock hits midnight for a WNBA player, it doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a pause, a quiet moment where the noise fades and reality gets louder. While the world is counting down, I'm counting forward, thinking about what didn't get finished, what's still expected, what everyone assumes this new year will magically fix. People think a new year means a fresh start, new goals, new energy, new motivation. But at this level, the year doesn't restart. It continues. The pressure doesn't disappear when the calendar changes. It follows you into January, carrying everything from last season with it, the expectations, the comparisons, the questions about what you're supposed to become next. I remember sitting there watching the countdown and realizing something that most fans never think about. For them, the new year is hope. For me, it's responsibility. Responsibility to be better than last year. Responsibility to justify the attention. Responsibility to prove that whatever people believe about me, good or bad, wasn't a mistake. There's this idea that athletes start the year motivated, refreshed, ready to conquer everything. But the reality is quieter and heavier. Your body doesn't reset. Your mind doesn't reset. And the league doesn't reset its expectations either. If anything, they increase because now there's a new year and everyone expects a new version of you. That's when it hit me. A new year doesn't feel like a beginning when you're a WNBA player. It feels like a continuation of something you never stopped carrying. And once you understand that, you start to see New Year's differently. Not as a moment of celebration, but as a moment of reflection, of honesty, of asking yourself whether you're ready to walk back into the same pressure just with a new date attached to it. Because when the fireworks fade and the noise dies down, the work is still waiting. And so is everything people expect you to be this year. After the new year arrives, something strange happens. Everyone around you starts talking about goals, resolutions, big promises. But inside, you already know what the year is going to demand from you. There's no guessing, no dreaming. The expectations are already written in last season's performances, in headlines, in conversations you didn't even take part in. As a WNBA player, the new year doesn't ask what you want. It asks what you can handle. How much pressure you're willing to carry without letting it show. How quickly you can turn last year's lessons into this year's results. There's an unspoken belief that growth should be immediate, that progress should be visible right away. And if it's not, people start asking questions. What makes it harder is that everyone assumes confidence comes naturally with experience. They think another year automatically means you feel stronger, calmer, more certain. But confidence doesn't reset on January 1st. It's built slowly, sometimes painfully, through moments most people never see. Through doubt after bad games, through discipline on days when motivation is low, through choosing focus when distraction would be easier. I started realizing that the new year actually amplifies pressure, because now there's a before and after. Last year versus this year. Who you were versus who you're expected to be now. And every performance becomes a comparison point. Every mistake feels louder because people believe you should have grown past it by now. This is the part fans rarely notice. The new year doesn't lighten the mental load, it sharpens it. You're not just carrying your own expectations anymore. You're carrying everyone else's timeline for your success. And timelines are unforgiving. They don't care how long growth really takes. They only care about results. That realization changes how you move through the year. You stop chasing motivation and start chasing stability. You learn that consistency matters more than excitement. That staying grounded is more important than feeling inspired. Because inspiration fades. Pressure doesn't. And once you accept that, the new year stops feeling like a promise. It starts feeling like a test. A test of patience, a test of focus, and a test of whether you can keep showing up even when the celebration is over and the expectations are higher than ever. As the year moves forward, you start to notice how differently time feels at this level. Outside the league, a year is something people plan around. Inside it, a year feels like a countdown. Every game, every stretch, every stat starts getting measured against what people think this year should look like for you. There's this quiet comparison that follows you everywhere, not always spoken out loud, but always present. Last season versus this one, other players' growth versus yours, where you should be by now. And even when you try not to think about it, the conversation finds you through interviews, through social media, through the way people react when you play well or when you don't. The new year turns progress into expectation. Last year, improvement was exciting. This year, it's required. And that shift changes the emotional weight of every performance. A good game feels like relief instead of celebration. A bad game feels like a setback instead of a lesson. You don't get to sit in the middle for long. What makes this harder is that growth in basketball isn't linear. Some things click quickly, others take time, but the calendar doesn't care about that. Once the year changes, people assume the work is done, that you should be ready now. And when you're not, the tone changes, sometimes subtly, sometimes not. I remember realizing that the new year also changes how mistakes are viewed. Last year, they were part of the process. This year, they're framed as warning signs, as doubts, as proof that something isn't moving fast enough. And carrying that awareness into every game forces you to become mentally tougher than most people ever realize. This is when I understood that a new year doesn't give you patience. It takes it away. And learning how to grow without that patience, how to stay steady when everything around you expects acceleration, becomes one of the hardest parts of playing at this level. Because when the calendar flips, the league doesn't ask if you're ready. It assumes you are. Another thing people don't realize about the new year at this level is how quiet it becomes once the celebration ends. The lights fade, the messages slow down, and suddenly, it's just you and the work again. While most people are still easing into January, you're already locked into routines that don't change just because the year did. There are mornings where the gym feels emptier than usual, nights where recovery feels longer, and moments where you're surrounded by teammates yet still feel alone in your thoughts. Not because anyone is doing something wrong, but because pressure is personal. Everyone carries it differently, and the new year seems to magnify that feeling. Family and friends talk about fresh starts, about leaving the past behind. But as a WNBA player, the past walks into the new year with you. Every clip, every stat, every conversation from last season still exists. Nothing disappears. And learning how to coexist with that history without letting it define your future becomes part of the job. I notice that January often brings a strange mix of gratitude and heaviness. Gratitude for the opportunity to keep doing this. Heaviness from knowing how much is expected now. You're thankful, but you're also aware that thankfulness doesn't lower the bar. If anything, it raises it. This is where mental discipline starts to matter more than motivation. Motivation comes and goes, especially after the excitement of a new year fades. Discipline is what carries you through the quieter days, through the workouts no one posts, through the progress no one claps for, through the moments where improvement feels slow but necessary. The new year teaches you that growth doesn't always feel inspiring. Sometimes it feels repetitive, isolating, heavy. But those are the moments that quietly shape who you become by the end of the year. And once you accept that, the new year stops feeling like something you need to celebrate loudly. It becomes something you need to commit to quietly. As the weeks pass, the new year starts to feel less like a question and more like a mirror. It shows you who you are when excitement is gone, when routines are heavy, when progress is slow and invisible. That's when you learn what actually carries you forward, not hype, not expectations, but habits. I started realizing that the new year wasn't asking me to become someone new. It was asking me to become more honest. Honest about what I needed to improve. Honest about what I could control. Honest about the fact that growth doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it looks boring, repetitive, quiet. There's a moment every season where you understand that chasing validation is exhausting. Applause fades. Opinions change. And if your confidence is built on those things, the year will wear you down fast. The new year taught me to measure progress differently, not by how much noise I created, but by how steady I stayed when no one was watching. This is also where resilience becomes personal, not the kind people celebrate in highlights, but the kind that shows up in consistency. In choosing to do the same hard things again and again, even when they don't feel rewarding yet. The new year strips away illusions and leaves you with discipline, and discipline is what actually lasts. By this point, the pressure doesn't disappear, but it changes. It stops feeling like something pushing against you and starts feeling like something you move with. You learn to carry it without letting it control your pace. And that's when the year stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling intentional. The new year isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about refining what already exists. And once that mindset settles in, the rest of the year becomes less about proving something to others and more about staying true to the work you committed to when the year first began. By the time the year really settles in, you stop thinking about it as new. It's just the year now. The work has a rhythm, the pressure has a shape, and you've learned where your limits are, not to avoid them, but to respect them. That's when you realize the new year never asked you to change overnight. It asked you to stay present long enough to grow. Looking back, I understand that the new year didn't come to give me answers. It came to test my consistency, to see if I would keep showing up when excitement faded, to see if I would trust the process even when results lagged behind effort, and to see if I could carry expectations without letting them harden me. This is the part fans rarely see. The new year isn't about fireworks or declarations. It's about quiet decisions made over and over again. Decisions to stay disciplined, to stay patient, to stay grounded. Because growth at this level doesn't come from moments, it comes from patterns. So when I say Happy New Year now, it means something different. It's not a wish for something easier. It's a commitment to something real, to keep working, to keep learning, to keep moving forward, even when progress feels invisible. And if you're watching this at the start of your own year in sports or anywhere else, remember this. A new year doesn't promise change. It gives you the chance to earn it. If you want more honest conversations about what life really looks like behind professional basketball, beyond highlights and headlines, stay here, subscribe. We'll keep telling you stories that don't get counted down to midnight.